In this week's video, I'll be covering the customer accessory circuits for the Can-Am Spyder F3 models 2014 and up, also the RT models and Rykers as well. Now the RT and the Rykers, they have one location that I'll be showing. For the Rykers, it's easy to get to, but for the RT models, it's not that easy, so I will be showing an alternative that you can use from Sling Mods. It's a fuse block that you can use to add up any accessories that you want to your bike. Now this can be used for the Spyder F3s, the Rykers, and the RTs, but it is a recommendation for the RTs since all the accessories are pretty hard to get to the way that the bike's made. Now for the Spyder F3, I'll be showing all three locations, the polarities of them, how to check that polarity, and also they are very great to use because whenever you turn off your keys to the ignition, it cuts the power to them as well, so you don't have to worry about them draining your battery. So I hope you guys enjoy this week's video. Now, as mentioned earlier, there are three locations for the Can-Am Spyder F3. It is underneath the back seat, towards the middle of the bike, on the left side, underneath the handlebars, basically, and then in the front location of the bike. For the RT models that I'll be showing later on, it is on the right-hand side, basically underneath the handlebar location as well. And for the Rykers, it's under the handlebar location on the left-hand side. Now under the passenger seat of the motorcycle, you're going to notice that there is a Customer Accessory Circuit label right there that comes up to this circuit right here. Now this is a Customer Accessory Circuit for the back. Again, it's located under the passenger seat. All you have to do is just remove the seat and it'll be clamped down in there. And as you can see, it has the female connections. Now when I'm stripping down there are two wires. It's kind of a purplish color with a black wire. That is your positive and then your negative polarity as well. Now these connections are in three places here. Also on the RT and Ryker, they have the same type of connections, or if they don't have female connections, I do recommend putting the female connections on just like this, and that way you can always add an accessory using a male, and it's really easy to connect and disconnect. That way you're not cutting wires constantly. It is a more permanent and a useful type of connection, because again, you're just cutting the wire once and connecting these, and then you can plug and unplug, cut the wires on your accessories as much as possible, but it saves your bike wear and tear. Now when checking the polarity, you can get this little tester. It's a cheap tester you can get on Amazon for like $7. I don't recommend these, but it's simple for people that don't know how to use a voltmeter. Basically, you're going to take the clamp, connect it to a location that has metal on the frame. All right, and the next part is you're going to touch this sharp point inside one of the female connectors. Now this is the positive wire and the black is the negative again. So in order to test this, because this is a switched wire, which means that whenever you turn the switch on, it is then powered up, you have to turn the bike on and then check it. So what you do is you turn the bike on, you're going to touch this to the tip inside of here, the female connector, and then this should light up. That would show you that that's positive. When you touch it to the negative, it will not light up because that is the common or ground, and there should be no current going to it. So I have to start up the bike, so I won't be talking, but I'll start up the bike and show you the differences in polarity. Now the next thing that I'm going to show testing with is a voltmeter. So since this is a DC, you've got to make sure you have a voltmeter that's DC readable. And whenever you're doing this, this is one of the best ways to check. So if you're not familiar with it, don't attempt this. Get a professional to install everything. But for the voltmeter, it is the best way to test over that cheaper Amazon thing. So what we're going to do is we hook the negative or the ground up to somewhere on the frame that has metal, good clean metal too, not painted. And then we're going to connect the positive leads to the positive wire, and we should get a reading of, at first you'll see 20 and then it goes to 14 volt, or it can go to 12 volt. And then for the ground wire, you're not going to see any reading whatsoever. Now the reason that I'm showing you these are not to teach you how to test these things, but to show you the differences in polarities, because in America most of the time we have a red for the positive and then a black for the common or negative. In other countries there are different colors. Of course this is Canadian made, so this is kind of a purplish with like a yellow stripe down it, and then the ground is a black, and it's that way throughout the bike. If you'll notice, there's different colors on some of these wires. Like this one has an orange, a light green, and a black. So if you don't know what you're doing, do take it to a professional. Otherwise, if you do know what you're doing and you're comfortable with using a voltmeter, check your connections before connecting anything, and that's the best way to tell. Again, so these connections, we have purple and black, so I'd hook my positive connections of any type of accessory to this wire and my negative to this one. So that is the first customer accessory we'll talk about, and that is again underneath the passenger seat. Really easy to get to, and as you saw, it is switched, so you don't have to worry about anything draining your battery. And also do be careful. Make sure that you always have things properly grounded when using these, especially the little cheap little tester from Amazon. If you don't have something grounded, you can short out your bike, and that's a huge problem. So be sure, one, you know what you're doing or you get a professional, and then two, just make sure that you're always careful not to cross connect or arc over any of the two connections as well, to make sure you don't tear up your bike. So again, the second one is located here on the left-hand side. This is kind of where the Ryker's is, underneath the panel, underneath the handlebars. And this one on the Spyder F3s is always labeled Customer Accessory Circuit. Let me get my hands in here so you can see. I'm trying to make sure I'm not blocking anything. But it will be labeled. Unfortunately, I have it hooked up to a USB connector that I have, and I had rigged up, but it's the same as the one underneath the seat. You'll see a little rubber gasket, or some of these from some bikes, they're just taped with this cloth-like tape that's over top of it. Again, I used a male and female connection to connect everything up to, so I can always unplug it, but I don't want to pull and unplug on things too much. So again, this is the wire for the Spyder, and you'll check it the same way that you did the other, making sure that you get a metal part of the frame for the ground, and just checking it using those two accessories that I had talked about. Or testing it with the two testers that I had talked about earlier on the back. Now the customer accessory circuit is right here in the front by the battery. I do have two things connected to it right here, but basically this is how it came, taped up just like this. It does not have the rubber gasket that the back one did, and this is how the side is as well. So you just untape everything. Again, the color wires are the same as they were for the back, so I'm not going to remove these and demonstrate to you, just because it is the exact same thing. So you test these with a polarity tester or with the voltmeter as well. But this is your front accessory. And this is probably one of the easier ones to get to along with the back one. The side ones, you got to take off the panel and stuff, but this one's just removing the front. And again, you can hook anything up. All three of these accessories are switched, so they only work whenever the ignition is on and the bike is running, so it's a good way not to drain your battery. Now on the Rykers, in order to get to the accessory circuit on the left side of the Ryker, you will first have to remove the upper left fairing, covering the location shown by the arrow in the picture. After removing the upper left fairing, on the left hand side you will see a cable plugged into the plastic. The arrow shows where the cable is located in the picture and plugged into the plastic. Now after removing this, as standard, most of the time the black wire is the negative and the colored wire with a stripe or just colored wire is the positive. Now on the RT, in order to get to the accessory circuit on the right side of the RT, you will first have to remove all the panels covering the location that is shown with the arrow above. Now where this arrow is at, you basically have to remove all the panels on the right side to get to it. So it is a difficult spot, and do be mindful that you don't scratch the plastic, strip any screws while doing so. After removing all the panels on the right hand side, you will then have access and you will see a cable plugged into the plastic, and the arrow here shows where the cable is located at and plugged in. It's pretty close to the ECU, so it is a little spot. Again, as standard, most of the wiring is black is negative and any colored is positive. Now what I think is a better option than going through all the trouble of removing the panels and harming something or scratching up your paint is a little unit that is from Sling Mods, and this unit does have circuits that are on all the time. They also have circuits that are turned on by the key or the ignition. And then you also have several ports that connect to things like your left turn signal and also your right turn signal. So this comes in handy when trying to sync up some lights that go on and off with your turn signals. Now you also have locations that sync with your running boards, and then also your brake lights, so if you want to add something that does blink whenever you stop as well, like under lights. Now there's also several things on here that are for added protection, and fuses are one of them that you can replace. That is kind of nice. Instead of having to remove the panels and everything and going back in and out to find out what's going on, you can just check your fuses first. So this is a much better option than having to go through all that. Easily installs, and it is not that bad a price from Sling Mods. I'm sure you can get something like this in other areas, but this one, after looking at it, is set up pretty nicely.